The urbanization process has been taking place, and it's not common only to Jamaica. It's all over the globe that this is happening. More people are moving into the cities looking for work with all of the issues that countries are facing. Jobs, the need for that, and along with that comes all of the issues. We started this project in 2014, building on 3 areas basically, working on the water, sanitation and hygiene, shelter and the settlement, and then policy and planning. So we had something that we called PASA, Participatory Approach to Safer Shelter Awareness, that kicked off the whole community involvement. Even as we were doing that, we had identified a number of stakeholders that we were working with and getting them involved in the process of talking about how, as a project technical team, they can advise and help the community to achieve some of the things that needed to be done. We went through that phase. We moved to training the community builders, which basically meant we were building capacity, community builders, and we showed how we needed to retrofit homes. We worked on building VIDPs, we worked on building garbage receptacles in the community. So there were a number of activities that were involved in helping the community to understand its resilience. We were also focused on dealing with the micro projects that the community would have identified as things that they felt were crucial to help them in their resilience. However, as we traversed through the first years of the BRACED project, we recognized that there was a central thing that we had not necessarily grappled with. The idea that persons have set up homes on areas that have been either designated as not safe for building, or they have set them up on areas that are designated for some other land use. The situation means that we have to work with communities in getting them regularized so that they can really add to the development of a nation. And that's what we ended up going with the BRACED project. Because after we'd have done all the capacity building and getting all of those pieces in, we recognized that there was a central piece that was not being grappled with. And that was getting persons to understand that the work and the trainings that were happening can be transferred into how they built safer homes, how they maintained their environment, and that was not happening because they felt that at any time the authorities could move them off of the places where they are. That meant that we needed to deal with the component of secure tenure, that the need to do something, because unless change happens, unless some different dynamic enters the picture, the work, the development or lack thereof will continue in how it has been progressing. Community will develop, will grow, will get larger, there will be urban spread, and there will be no formality with it. And what we will have resulting is the crime that associates with these communities. It's the poor health that is associated with it, and the increased vulnerabilities. So the cost of not doing anything is going to ultimately hurt a country much more than if they were to start dealing with it in a proactive manner. And we need to make a choice as to which we want. Do we pay the bill after, or do we pay the bill up front? I think the cost up front is much more beneficial to the community and to the government as a whole than waiting until after a disaster were to occur. We had a series of workshops, and of those workshops, there were some things that were identified as crucial that needs to be a part of the discourse to help deal with regularization, deal with secure tenure, thus making the communities more resilient. Some of those things we're talking about is the absence of technology. Technology, we have identified the costs for doing, for example, land surveying is immense. And there's no way that an informal community with poor jobs or just very low income are going to be able to afford those costs. And if the whole pendulum of land regularization starts with that, with surveying, immediately there's a non-starter. However, with new technology of drone, we have used that as an example in the Gregory Park community. We are able to gather the same kind of information at the same quality, the same depth that is required as is required by the land surveyors to continue to start the process. So we think that drone technology must become a feature in land regularization moving forward, and the earlier it is involved in the process, the better for the country as a whole. There are no laws, absolutely no laws at the current point in time we're speaking that targets the urban informal sector directly. There are general laws, there are general provisions that covers the entire country, but not particular to this particular demographic. And this is a group where if something were to happen, you have the largest densities of people, and that in and of itself is a problem. So we don't have a law that targets that. We would like to support the articulation of a law that will target the urban informal sectors, regularization there, and that can be supported by a number of agencies. The agencies that we have been talking with, meeting with, they are also interested in doing something, because as we said before, not doing anything is just not an option. So the situation that we are also faced with is that while we are talking to these changes that needs to happen, we recognize that there are certain behaviors that seem to have been baked into the systems in which we work, whether it's NLA or HAJ or the LAMP. There are particular ways they operate, there are particular ways they do things, and unless they are willing to make adjustments, those inefficiencies that are baked into it, like archaic laws, will continue to hamper the growth and the development of the nation. There needs to be some kind of land-based financing tool introduced into the dynamic that would allow the agencies to maintain their bottom lines, to have new influx of and inflows of income into the society that will help to build and develop. So we're talking about incrementally growing the development in here in Jamaica, in Portmore. Okay, we've also identified that there needs to be a correlation and an interaction between the levels. So we're talking about the community not being excluded, but being included in the discussions around how that development takes place. We're talking about the various agencies that are involved in land regularization, that are involved in the pricing of those things that impact land regularization, because ultimately we have to make the connection between who we are doing this work for and with, and who are the ones that are asking for the work to be done. So for example, there at the community level, the urban poor, low income, as we said before. And at the other end, we have the persons who map the costs for the processes that need to get regularization, secure tenure in place. And what we recognize that there's a huge gulf between the two areas. And there seems to be not a clear recognition that if we price the costs for regularization so high, then it excludes immediately the largest part of the community from being involved. In Jamaica, it is reported that there are over 700 informal communities. And in those informal communities, the greater percentage of them would possibly be squatters. And if the squatters can be brought in to the whole picture, and that I think would represent somewhere about a quarter of the population, if that can be brought into the mainstream of financing, we're always going to have deficit. And in our speaking to the community, persons are willing to get involved, but they know that if you price something too high, they can't even start. So we have to make it attractive. We have to make it affordable for them to get involved. And the Habitat Fast Track process that has been mapped out and that we're speaking to seeks to do just that. There are two main categories that the Habitat Fast Track process speaks to. One is involvement of new technology and a collaboration of information setting that can be handled at the community level through the Territorial Information Management System, so the TISMP, and with drone technology, we think can cut the cost of regularization significantly. The other part of that is there needs to be a review of the acts and the provisions, the laws that currently govern this urbanization process. Once we are able to tackle those collectively, once we are able to do so with the opposition, the government, and the municipality and the community all speaking the same language, the development of Jamaica could be advanced, must be advanced. The resilience of the people will be increased significantly. And what we will have happening is the next time one of the storms come through or we have a terrific shake, what we will have are people who are more resilient because they have invested. They have invested in the places where they live. And if that investment does not come, then we leave the people vulnerable and we need to make a change. So yes, change is possible. Change will happen. But how we determine and drive the change is where we need to get involved at the government level, at the community level, municipal level.